Hello and welcome to Sunday Night with me, Kweku Nhyira-Addo. Today's iconic conversation is with a man who first left Ghana on a scholarship, came back with 22 patents, helped set up a university's engineering department, and goes on and founds his own university. Professor Fred Mcbongunlori. Good to have you on Sunday Night.
Thank you for having me.
A very interesting journey, summed up in maybe 4 sentences.
Okay.
But you left Ghana as a biology student.
Yes.
And went to study manufacturing engineering.
On Ghana government scholarship.
First of all, why the change? How did you?
It's serendipity. You know, when I was first told about the scholarship, I thought I could do anything with it. So I went to St. Augustine's College from Nandom Secondary School, specifically to go to medical school. Because I was told those days that the brilliant kids went to medical school.
Right.
So I was just going to medical school to convince myself I was brilliant. Okay. Then I got a scholarship, worked through the details of it. Last minute, somebody said, "Didn't you know this was an engineering scholarship?" I said, "No." So you still want to go? I'm like, of course. It's America. Who wouldn't want to go? And the rest is history.
So your scholarship took you into a field that you were not prepared for.
Absolutely. I never imagined me being an engineer.
But when you then arrived, did you experience any major culture shock in terms of how we study here, how teaching is done here, and how it's done over there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that surprised me was everybody was competing against themselves. You didn't see that aggressive, wanting to be on top of the class in Ghana. And I could also see people leave their textbooks anywhere. I mean, if you left your textbook where I went to high school, it would be missing. But nobody cared. And it's like, I was surprised. I said, what kind of place is this? You know, knowledge is you against you. Everything was available. People were willing to help. You could go ask for help without feeling embarrassed. I think those were really the shocking cultural things that I experienced the first few weeks that I was in America. That knowledge was so free, you could easily access it.
Yeah. I mean, you studied engineering and then you went on to MIT and got 22 patents to your name. I mean, what about the educational journey in America that created the Fred we know today?
So that's a very interesting, I think hard work, obviously a little bit of good luck. But what I also found quite intriguing about the American educational system was that it did not put you in a cage. You know, even as an engineering student, I was allowed to take courses in sociology. I was allowed to take courses in history. I was allowed to take courses in psychology. And these things came in very handy when I went into the professional world because I had to deal with customers. I had to be able to tease out requirements from customers to develop solutions for them. So those skills, more than anything else, really led me on this journey of invention because engineering is just the tools you need to solve the problems. But how do you tease out those problems? And that is why when we talk about STEAM education, that art is critical because the skill set that helps you to interpret the world around you, to solicit input, to talk to customers, to understand consumer behavior, and therefore the ability to solve problems that they may have.
You know, it's quite interesting you say this because recently I was talking to somebody who said that if you were, say, a geography student, but you felt you wanted to now try your hands at medicine, you could do that in America.
Yes, you could.
Not in Ghana.
Not here in Ghana.
Why?
It's unfortunate.
You're an educator now. Why?
Look, I think we have boxed ourselves into an educational philosophy that we do not understand. So if you look at the American educational system, it's based on philosophies such as Dewey. How do you teach kids? By exposing them to multiple ideas and concepts and try to figure out what they are good at. For us, we cage everybody. So you can do this and you cannot do this. And so, I was asking earlier, if somebody in my university, for instance, wanted to become a science fiction writer, I don't know what courses they could study in the university to become a science fiction writer. If somebody wanted to become a chemical or a physical or biological anthropologist, I don't know what courses they are going to be able to. But if they are unable to do these things that they are passionate about, then you are producing unemployed graduates that are going to go around looking for jobs. Because unless your passion meets what you are intellectually excited about, you will never have a fulfilling life.
How do we craft an educational system that allows students to find that nexus between their passion and academic excellence?
I think we just have to come to a compromise with ourselves, we those in academics, we those in decision-making processes, that the world has moved on from how we were educated. We need to be flexible. The era of you must do this because I say so is long gone. What we need to do is to create an enabling environment that allows kids to explore, to engage, to understand, and then to figure out what they want to do. I don't think we need a kid studying 7 courses to figure out what they need to do. There should be nothing wrong with a kid studying geography, chemistry, and biology. There should be no reason. The only reason should be, what do they want to do with it? And how do you tailor such knowledge to enable that? And I think we need a fundamental rethink. I think our educational system is over-policed. We are over-caged. And we still want our kids to go through our experiences, which I think is a little anachronistic.
I'm probably thinking alike with other people who would be afraid and apprehensive at an unpoliced or under-policed educational system. Explain the concept.
Okay. So if you look at most U.S. educational institutions, they have accreditation bodies. And what that accreditation body does is to say that you have met the minimum requirements to be a tertiary institution. That's it. Finish. Now you can go create a program in science animation and offer a degree in it. Nobody is going to come and say, I'm from University of Nyankpala. Your program doesn't look like our program. The only way you can offer a similar program is if it looks like ours. And that is what we see. That is what we go through in accreditation process and reaccreditation programs all the time. People actually coming to tell you that your program has to look like them. And then you have to explain to them that if you do computer science in Cornell, it doesn't look like computer science at Stanford. It doesn't look like computer science at MIT. If mine looks like yours, I won't be able to charge what I charge for it. So I just think what the accreditation board should do when you submit a program and they approve it, when they come back in 4 years to do reaccreditation, they should simply turn the tables around and say, okay, Professor Mcbogunlori, 4 years ago, we approved this program for you to run. Show us how your graduates are doing. Where are they working? What are the changes that have occurred in that industry since the last accreditation? How have you integrated these new ideas into your curriculum? But today, you have one group who come and say, oh, you need data network and communication as one course. 4 years later, another panel comes and says, you need to split data science and networks. And you just keep going through this tail-chasing exercise. And I don't think, if I had that kind of education, I'll be an inventor or an innovator. Knowledge and intellect requires a certain degree of freedom, a certain degree of flexibility to shine. We should not strive for a standardization of our academic processes. We should strive for harmonization.
The boy from Nandom Secondary, by way of St. Augustine's College, find yourself on a scholarship in America. You go through the process of navigating the culture shock, which from your description, I would call a positive culture shock.
It was positive.
People were helpful. And you could go and talk to people. The hierarchy of lecturer and student was bridged. And it was something I observed when I first met you back when you were at the engineering faculty at Asaase University. We look at Asaase and say, well, it is an American university in Ghana. What's the philosophy that makes it possible for us to have a university like Asaase or academic university, which you went on to found, where the students or graduates are markedly different
Yeah.
when they walk into a room.
Yeah, yeah. So look, I would say that the overarching philosophy, and I can speak for me, is my objective is to graduate the next generation of scholars that are better than me. And I'm comfortable with that.
Wow.
My measure of success is where they go and how far they get away from what I was able to achieve. So I'm able to go under the table where my genes are often and work with them. And I see each of these students in my classroom as my ambassadors to the world. And so I think that realization that you can create an enabling atmosphere where kids are comfortable to engage with you, where kids understand clearly that your ultimate objective is to make sure that they are not only successful, but they are more successful than you. I think if we all start thinking that way in academia, that these students really should be, and they would be, whether you like it or not. So why don't you just make sure that they give you some credit when they get to wherever they go, by helping them, by making sure that you're there for them.
Ghana just celebrated 67 years of independence. Our educational system, from the little I know, seemed to have created a battery farm or a system, a conveyor belt for clerks. The world has evolved. What do we need to do differently?
Oh, Xtra, you're always asking me tricky questions. You know, I think what our educational system was intended for was basically to produce replacements for experts that were fleeing at the end of independence or at the beginning of our independence. And I don't think philosophically it has changed much. What we have succeeded in doing over the last 67 years is to produce exceptions. So anytime you challenge the status quo, whether it's senior high school, whether we need to reassess it or not, purveyors of the system are resistant and reluctant. But quality control is about going each time to figure out whether this is still fit for purpose. So there is no reason there should not be politics hanging in our educational system, because ultimately it's going to affect your kids, my kids, and those of and many others who cannot send their kids abroad. So I think where we have ended up is this: anytime you challenge the system, they say, "Oh, but look at Professor Alote, Professor Adai Mensah, Thomas Mensah, Victor Lawrence, Osio Asari. They all went through this system and they are doing well." And I said, that is all good. But you can't build a nation with exceptions. You need a critical mass. And we are not producing that critical mass. So we get lucky. A few of us that escaped this tyranny just got lucky and escaped it. So I think what we need to is to move away from the mindset of producing employees to how do we make these kids independent enough so that they can go out there and create enterprises.
You know, when you left on that scholarship, there were what I would call loosely a cohort of 15 of you. How many of you have come back?
The last I checked, I was still the only one.
Wow.
And
what was your motivation?
It took me 24 years to make that ultimate decision. Look, I think the last straw for me, I was talking to a friend one time. And before even my friend, there is this prevailing feeling that every Ghanaian I've encountered abroad, their bags are always packed. They really want to go home. Everybody is looking for that optimum moment to make that decision. But a friend's dad, who was a professor at Central State University for many, many years, he was an army officer, a drummer, a musician who went on training and never came back.
Okay.
And his son, who was a kid at the time he left, eventually came to the US and we went to the same school together. And one time we were having a conversation and he said, no matter how long you leave a log in a river, it will never become a crocodile.
Wow.
And that ran through my head over the years that I wrote 48 inventions, 22 of them made it into the light of the day. They are in products that are making differences in people's lives. But I think I'm much more known in Ghana now as the president of Academic City than I could have ever been in America. In America, I was simply a statistic. In my country, I'm a force to reckon with. And that is really my motivation. That's really that, can I come home and leverage this knowledge that I have from Fortune 100 companies, leading attending some of the finest institutions and having a body of knowledge that is readily transferable.
Now, how do we make the grounds fertile for other Freds to return, leverage what they've learned, and make impact?
Yeah. So, when I first came, I actually taught a course at Asaase called Introduction to Engineering. And it was part of the original curriculum. But the intent was, when we bring these kids out of high school that have had no counselors, and you say, oh, you can do actuarial science, and you can do geomatic, and you can do mechanical. What is the reference point? They have no basis to make those decisions. And along the way, people get frustrated. Some of them graduate and end up working in the banks. So the whole idea was, how do you expose kids to the fundamentals of what engineering is, what the profession itself is, to help them make informed decisions. So I taught that course, and at the end of the semester, a couple of the kids move around. So what I started thinking was that most of these kids actually come into the university system inadequately prepared for the rigors of engineering. And I kept thinking, what can I do to bridge this gap? So I started talking to friends, and I said, we need to take these kids at a very, very early stage and start exposing them to the fundamentals of science and technology and get them to be doers. And Xtra, the intent was not to take all of them and turn them into engineers. The intent was to teach them how to think logically, something that you're going to need when you're a lawyer in the future, because Watson is coming, all this AI stuff is coming. You don't need to be a scientist, but you will need to understand the language of science. And so the first experiment was iSteam Academy in Tedman, which has about 25 kids. And these kids come in and they are fearless. They break stuff, they fix stuff, they cut stuff. They are excited about what they do. And I think that even in America, I didn't see that. What I'm offering at Sparks and what I'm offering at iSteam, I did not see that abroad. And so I think if we follow and push on with this momentum, in the next 10 years, you're going to have engineers in your classrooms that are ready to face the rigors of what we need to develop. That's kind of what excites me.
What you are now was inside the cocoon of your childhood, if I could call it that. Let's dial back to Nandom.
Yes.
Where did the inventor
came from?
Where did that person come from?
Look, I've had a very interesting life in so many ways. My grandfather, Mcbogunlori, the first, was actually one of the first three to go to school in Upper West. One of the first three. So we have 5 generations now of educated people. So in our family, education is core. When I went to Nandom Secondary School, quite interested, I was so anxious to go to school that I went a week ahead of reopening. And the senior housemaster said, school starts in a week. I said, I'm ready. Can I stay in the dorms? And he said, you can't be in the dorms alone. So I said, you mean I have to go back to Y and come back? And he said, yes. So I had an old friend at Nandom Technical Vocational School. So I carried my trunk back to him, and he gave me a little floor. I put my blanket there for a week, and then I went to Nandom Secondary School. The first day I got on campus, I made a promise to myself, and I said, in the next 5 years, I'm going to graduate from here with a distinction, and I'm going to get a scholarship to go to America. That's exactly what happened.
Are you kidding? Where did that come from?
I don't know. It's just, I have this energy to succeed, the energy to overcome obstacles, the energy to meet challenges, the energy to differentiate. And when I went to MIT, it was exactly the same thing. I sat down in the middle of the class, I looked to the left, looked to the right, front and back. There were 128 of us. And I asked myself, I said, if the history of this moment were to be written in the next 20 years, where do I want to be? In the headlines, in the body of the text, or in the footnotes? And once you choose where you want to be, you work towards that. When I went to Central State University as undergrad, we were 150 students from Africa. And I said, when the history of this place is written, where do I want to be? And out of the 150, I was the only one that was inducted into the Hall of Fame, Central State University Hall of Fame. And by the way, I'm getting inducted into Virginia Tech Engineering Academy of Excellence on May 17th.
Whoa.
Only 0.2% of their 79,000 graduates have been inducted in. So is a significant.
It is indeed a significant thing, and there's a lot to learn from the examples you've shared, right from when you went to Nandom and to MIT and then to Central State. But you've come back after 24 years of surgeoning and pretty much conquering the world. You started iSteam, Sparks, and Academic City. It's as if there's a restlessness still about you. Where are you going?
You know, I believe in Ghana. I think this is a nation of great potentials. I think we should not be where we are. There are many more Freds that will never see the light of day. But I think we just need a few that believe in the system, that also understand that politics is not the only way we need to develop this country. I think what drives me is I love this country. I believe in its potential. I brought my kids here for 7 years so that they will know where I came from and what drives me. I think ultimately I'm going to have 16 Sparks, one in each region. In my lifetime. I think I'm going to build a university in the north. And it's probably going to be free education, free university education, focused on the fundamentals. And what do I mean by the fundamentals? I think one of the things that we need to reconfigure, we need to reconfigure our university to solve our problems. When you got here, the lights were out. So we have a deficit in energy, not electricity, in energy. So where is that university that is focused on developing the next generation of solar panels, the next generation of nuclear power?
Wind turbine.
Turbines. Where is it? So you need to have a university of energy that is focused on energy. Cocoa, shea butter. Where are those universities that will take you from the time the seed forms all the way to when the product is out? So once we start reconfiguring our university to solve our problems, rather than trying to be like Oxford or trying to be like Harvard. So I want to go to the north and start a university of agric engineering and agric sciences, which means that, like my cousin does in his backyard in the US, which is about the size of this room, he produces enough tomatoes for a year.
Wow.
No fertilizer. He just uses the compost from leftover food and he just buries it in the ground. And the soil is nothing but clay. And then you come up here and you see farmers who break their backs and get nothing out of it. So I think on the educational space, you know, I was laughing earlier with you. I said the first Nobel laureate in science will have to come from one of my institutions.
Wow.
And I'm unapologetic.
But I mean, if your history is anything to go by, it might sound audacious, but it's doable.
It's doable.
Tell me a bit about Sparks. You started Academic City, and you started talking about the importance of STEAM. You went beyond STEM. Why is the A so important?
Where are we without the A? I mean, all the philosophical basis of our existence is the arts. There is so much creativity in the arts. Let me give you an example. Today, art cannot survive without science and technology, and science and technology cannot evolve without the arts. Why do I say that? Say, for instance, we're in Brekusu today. Let's say 200 years ago, there was the best Adowa dancer in this town. Best Adowa dancer. What technology today would do is to put sensors all over her body and record all her motions. And 1 million years after she dies, you can translate this file onto a 3D model. And you can watch Nana Abena Besia still in action thousands of years later. That is art that is benefiting from science. Okay. Take Mole National Park. Today the animals are just walking there. The cabins are there. If I have cameras all embedded in that place today, somebody in New York will pay to go online and watch animals in their natural habitat in real time. Look at all the castles that we have today. Can you imagine? We're just watching the kids wear the goggles. We could have all those castles in there telling kids the stories about these places. And that is all art. If you go into museum and monument board today, I can tell you there are probably rooms full of artifacts that will remain there forever. But with 3D scanning, 3D modeling, 3D printing, you can actually create a virtual museum where people can actually pay to see these things. So for me, art and science are so intertwined that, in fact, the science is actually secondary, because without the art, what are you going to do with solutions? The science is solutions. The art poses the problems. And so for me, that is where the meeting place is, and that is why I emphasize the arts. Just imagine when I was growing up, Hearts of Folk, I don't watch football anymore. I'm not going to watch foreign football, Arsenal, Liverpool. No, I'm not going to do that. I want us to go back to the time when Asaase's Hearts of Folk heroes were what identify us as a people.
How do we get back there?
Leadership.
Do you think we have a leadership deficit, or we need to recalibrate? What about leadership do you think is required today?
Look, I work for a company that had 150 people and produced $2 billion goods every year. We are 33 million people, and our GDP is only what? 72 billion. So something is fundamentally wrong. It means we are not running this country like a business. That's what we need to do. There has to be outcomes. Our university systems are sluggish because there is no outcome. They just get government disbursements and they use it for administrative purposes. But if government were to say, actually Ministry for Monitoring and Evaluation, say, okay, these are your targets. This year you need to produce 200 PhDs. You need to publish 500 journals, in reputable journals. You need to file this many patents. This will dramatically change. And this is just a statement of leadership. This is what I want from my universities. And you will see what will happen. Right now, they are just administrative institutions where people just live on per diems.
And this is something you're changing.
Hopefully.
In your own
In my own little way.
Yes. But you have Sparks is a school.
It's a school, yes.
A STEAM school.
It's a STEAM school.
For kids.
For kids.
No. So let's dial back a moment. Okay. Now, paint me a picture.
So the whole concept of Sparks started with my cousin who lives in the Netherlands. And over the years, we've been talking about the kind of education that we had. She has this nostalgia about going to school, being large, being afraid to go to school, classrooms dirty, and she always wanted to build a school. And then I came back, and I'm teaching engineering students, and I can see the gaps. Like, can I, instead of whining every day about how WASI is not producing the best and brightest, can I go back and set up something that will configure the kids the way that I would like them to be when they get to me? So these are two schools of thought that converged. And then, of course, you needed resources. So we started talking to friends in our network. One of the friends came to visit, and I had walled this place, and I had dug the foundation, and I didn't have money. And he said, Fred, you look very serious. How much money do you need? So maybe 450,000 euro. He signed a check and gave it to me. And the rest is history.
Wow. And this is where the beginnings of a future Nobel laureate is
But now here's the interesting thing, though. While the conversation was going on, I built Ice Team Academy.
Okay.
I built Ice Team, as nice as this. So he sees the foundation, he sees a prototype of Ice Team and says, this guy is a serious guy. I'll invest in him. And so I see this place, Xtra, and I'm going to get a little emotional about it. I see this place as a safe place for kids of all backgrounds that can find comfort in not going through the fear, the uncertainties that I experienced as a child. When I went to school, I was always afraid. My teacher used to single me out for no reason. Well, now you can see the reason, right? I was a different kind of kid, and she wasn't trained to handle those kinds of kids. But I want those kinds of kids here, kids that are inquisitive, kids that ask questions, kids that break stuff, and then you teach them how to put it back together. And I call my teachers facilitators, because you are not really here to teach. You are here to provide guidance so that these kids can learn. So it's a safe place. It's a place where knowledge is presented in such a way that the kid is a strategic partner. The parents are part of this process, because every parent, I'll sit down with them and try to get what their expectations are of their kids and how we can co-create these kids into those excellent output that they all want. So that's what this space is for.
It's a brilliant thing, and I mean, we're taking a bit of a tour around and seeing some very cool stuff. STEAM education is important, evidently. I mean, the government's talking about STEM, model schools being built.
Yeah.
The world is all about the science now. How do we get to the point where we have, for the lack of a better expression, a wholesale revolution for our education? You know, where we're having stories of unicorns born out of university dropouts.
Yeah.
Not that I'm encouraging people to drop out of university.
You've seen what they've done.
But an environment that actually promotes that level of success.
Yeah. Look, I think we need to start focusing on skills. You know, when I went to MIT, maybe half the courses that I took at Sloan School, which is a world-class, Sloan was the first MBA program in the world. They still have bachelor's degree holders teaching PhDs and CEOs and CFOs in Sloan School. Bachelor's degree holders.
So the lecturers are teaching people who are more qualified on paper than them. What's the philosophy?
So, I mean, the fundamental question you need to answer is, a guy starts up a company, builds the company from the ground up, sells it for 10 billion. And he comes to teach you investment and investment strategies. Are you going to listen to that guy or some kid that just got a PhD in investment and doesn't even have a car, can barely buy a good shoe to wear? Guys, we gotta be realistic. We have to be realist. This guy knows how to build businesses, and he's going to continue to build businesses and sell them until he dies. That's the kind of skill set you need. You have a guy who was a CEO. He has retired as a CEO, and he's teaching you managing in adversity. How do you get into crisis mode as a CEO when you are confronted? And not only is he a former CEO, he's actually discussing real life cases with the CEO that is experiencing that issue in the class. So our educational system has to transition away from mirage to reality. And the reality is that knowledge can be found in places that you don't expect. Erik Erikson, a famous Swedish psychologist, had the equivalent of high school diploma. He taught at Harvard for many, many years. I went to MIT with a lady whose husband dropped out from Moscow State University. No undergrad. He went to Harvard and did a PhD in mathematics. And he was at the Princeton's School of Advanced Studies.
Wow.
As a resident scientist. So I think we are too fixated on paper qualification at the expense of real knowledge.
That sounds like a very radical idea. I see why your teacher was singling you out. say this would be a troublesome, you know. But I guess in restlessness, there's a lot of forward movement.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Well, I don't know. It sounds brilliant to me. Maybe because I kind of see that in several places I've observed where people have been plucked out of spaces and given an opportunity, and they've shown what the human being is capable of doing. And then you can also put people in a straitjacket and limit them.
Yeah, limit them.
We have a demographic dividend upon us. It's a bulge that's coming whether we like it or not. 3 out of every 5 young people will be living on this continent.
Yes.
How do we ensure that this does not become a bomb and a disaster, and that we really truly reap from the dividend of this, and Africa can take its place as a truly wealthy continent?
That's a very interesting question you have raised. And of course, there are obvious security implications also for what happens when you have a restive population that is anxious because they can see what is happening on the global stage. They have so much access to social media. They know what kids their age are doing in other parts of the world, and they are restless. You're going to have issues with drug addiction. You're going to have issues with terrorism. You're going to have those. I think this is where the transition to skill-based type education is important. You know, Miss Constance Swanica is trying to do the Design and Technology Institute. I think it's a marvelous idea where you can actually take a kid, train them to be handymen, but certify them with some customer relations experience and entrepreneurship. I don't have the answer, but I think we are really sitting on a time bomb. And we need to reconfigure, because even the universities cannot absorb all this youth. And what I would like to see is for government to start seeing private institutions as strategic partners rather than the other institutions. Because between Asaase and us, in the next decade, you'll be amazed at the quality of graduates that you'll find from these institutions.
But a lot of your graduates are finding work elsewhere.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm not against the idea. What will it take for us to sort of reap the direct benefits right here at home?
Look, Nhyira, I will give you my example. I was gone for 24 years. I worked for Siemens, I worked for Becton and Dickinson, I worked for Jones Healthcare, and there is nothing that I do here that I would have been able to do it for those experiences. So I'm open-minded about people actually going into the world and exploring, learning new things, and converging at home. And if you're a great engineer, I mean, just talked about my inventions. They are not only impacting Americans and Germans. They are impacting. So if you are good and you are delivering, it really doesn't matter where your address is. The impact can be felt anywhere else. So I think ultimately, like I said, Ghanaians always have their back sparked. They're just waiting to see whether there's an uncle who makes it into politics. Make that ultimate phone call.
Give them that phone call.
We're waiting.
Yeah. You know, it's quite interesting. You mentioned your inventions and innovations. And I remember when we went into lockdown in 2020. One weekend, I'm sitting at home, obviously, after washing my hands all day, checking social media, and I see a post. And you pretty much put out a call and says, hey, guys, I want to build a ventilator. What became of that project?
And you know, and I had never built one before. In fact, I actually got a call from somebody at the Ministry of Health that you are building a ventilator. I said, yes. Have you ever built one? I said, no, but everything else I've built was the first time. That was my answer to, well, I never heard back from him. But, you know, it's the same part of that restlessness. It's like, I know we can do something about it. You know, going home to hide under our beds and pray, it's not an option. God has already given us the talent. And my belief system is that God will never, your prayers will never be answered for anything that you can do. True. So I sent out a call. We built a respirator, you know, something that could just deliver air to somebody gasping. And then we started adding electronics to it, trying to make it a little more intelligent. And we built a ventilator. And then we sent it to Korle Bu. They tested it in Korle Bu. I still have the videos. The head of anesthetics said, anesthesiology, I think is the name, he said, if this dummy that is lying on this table were a human being, you have saved it.
Wow. Has it gone into production?
Mula.
So,
no, you know, what is quite interesting about products is that, you know, something that we did in about a month, even in a major industry, could take 4 to 5 years. So we've now added oxygen sensor to it, so now you can tell how much extra oxygen is coming from the tank. And it's touch screen now. We can actually.
So you've incorporated a lot of, you know,
it's sweet right now. And
bells and whistles and all.
Now we are working on something that even do not have electronics at all. It's called the small wood project, and this will help keep people's breathing tubes, like airwaves, completely open. And it's just water and a tube and a pipe. And
oh wow!
So that should be able to help in places where there is no electricity, or in places where there is electricity but it's not available.
Right. For young people and, just generally anybody watching us or listening to us, from your own story, what would you like to say about restlessness? Because it's always said that when you feel that burn inside you, you feel, I need to do something. How should they go about harnessing this burn to do something?
Charlie, it's genetics, so it's genetics, because look, my grandfather walked from Wa to Navrongo as a 6-year-old kid to go to school. That's my paternal grandfather.
Walked from
Wa
to Navrongo.
200 miles, 250 miles, okay, to go to school. Never came back until he had finished standard 7.
Wow.
My mother's father walked from Upper West to Accra. It took him 20 years, and he never went back. Today, he's lying quietly on Lagos Avenue in East Legon. And so to a large extent, I grew up around this influence of being a go-getter. My guidance to young people, and you can't expect, I'm by no means the only pathway to success.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say to young people is that you need to dream. You need to have aspirations, but that's one thing. The only dreams that come true are the ones that you have while you are awake. You need to chase your dreams. You need to run your life like a project. You need to aspire for something bigger than you. You want to make an impression to yourself and to society. I think those would be my words to young people. And that it's possible. That the only time failure is possible is when you give up.
Let's explore a journey to the younger Fred.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you were to advise the younger Fred?
Yeah.
What would you tell that young man today?
Charlie, I would say, take it easy.
Are you sure? Take it easy.
Look, I'm a perfectionist, and whatever I put my mind to, I want to achieve it. So I'm the guy that would chase something, and if it doesn't work, I move on to something rather than to sit back and keep constantly thinking what would have happened if I had tried it. The example I give people and they laugh is, there's this beautiful girl in high school, you really have a crush on her, you were never able to talk to her. Many years later, you're wondering, what if I had talked to Lucy? What would have happened? No, I don't do that. I'll go talk to Lucy, and she says no, and I move on, and never think about Lucy again, rather than this year. So I think the younger Fred was always a go-getter. I always made sure, even in college, that I would do my homework before I party. When my friends wanted to go to the nice clubs and party, I'll tell them I'll only come after I get off work. If you can come and help me clean the kitchen, then I'll go with you. So the priority was always to my success. And I did not allow things to distract me. And, whatever problem I encounter, I'm like, what is in this for Fred? What can I do to better myself? I'm always in a I read a lot. I read, I write. I keep myself busy. I have a wife who is very understanding. And so choosing a life partner, a good life partner, is also important.
Okay.
60% of success.
Depends on that person that you choose. Wonderful. You talk about writing. Now let's get into the world of writing.
Right.
You have been writing.
Yes, I've written about 9 novels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where did that one to come from? Writing romance novels.
Yes. So when I got to Central State University, we were told that all the students on scholarship will have to do a program called Great Books by force.
Okay.
Because the school got a lot of allocation from state resources if students were in those advanced courses. So most of the African students were in that program, and you were reading existentialism, really philosophy, very deep stuff. And I actually got to like it. Wow, the writer's mind is an amazing place to be,
Right.
And read all the big philosophers, Hegel, Kierkegaard, and I just kept reading them until one day I said, I remember my headmaster in Nandom Secondary School, Mr. Donillon, after we wrote our mock exams, he called me into his office and he had my essays in front of him. He said, "Did you write this?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you sure you wrote this?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "If this is your work, I've been an examiner for WAEC for the last 25 years. This is the best essays that I've ever read. Mm-hmm. If this is you, you have a potential to be a writer." So with that lingering in my mind, that shot in the arm, and then after reading philosophy, I'm like, I need to write. So I needed to find a niche, and a little bit of romance here and there came to
No, but it's really great. I've had the chance to read a couple of them, and I think it's great writing. And do you feel that your reading, your appetite for reading voraciously has impacted on your ability to write?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In style, in prose, in philosophical thought. Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, sooner or later, you can always point to an author whose work you would like to emulate. Mm-hmm. I mean, in my case, one of the guys that I read was an Irish writer called John Banville. And he has this small book called The Sea. Mm-hmm. And the imagery in that book is just so vivid, you can almost touch it.
I am going to look for it.
I want to be John Banville.
Wow. I'm definitely going to.
It's a Booker Prize winner.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful man.
You roll with the winners only.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
You know, but Fred, what do you do to relax?
Oh, boy. I try
but you put on a bit of weight, I must say. But I guess it's also because you're just a little too busy.
Yes. I write, actually. I mean, my biggest outlet is writing. I'm writing my autobiography now. It will be interesting to read.
I'm very sure.
And I'll give you the honor of doing the first interview on it.
Not a problem. That'd be great.
So I read a lot. I like to gym. I've not had much time. In fact, the last gym I was, the lights went off all of a sudden, and one of the guys fell and broke his ankle. And so go back, because I didn't go back. So, I mean, that's where we are. And I like to talk to young adults. I mean, I do very active mentorship for both my students that have graduated and those that are still in school. When I travel, I try to visit them wherever I go. If there's an old student of Asaase or Academic City, I'll find them. Yeah. Recently, I found a pair. My first
in East Africa.
I found one in East Africa, but I found a pair at Virginia Tech, my old school.
Oh.
So my first student from engineering at Asaase, my first engineering student from Academic City were roommates doing PhD at Virginia Tech.
This is just spooky. And two first students from the two institutions you've been involved in.
Doing PhD and their roommates. Yes.
The future is bright.
Amen. Amen.
You know, look, it's always great catching up with you. At this point, you don't listen to music? It's funny, you've never talked about liking music.
Never talked about liking music. I do like music. And I like all kinds of music. I like good music. Okay. I listen to Native American music. I listen to country music. I listen to reggae. I don't like the yo-yo stuff. I like stuff that has a little bit of intellect in it.
You're not the target.
Yes, I know. I do like music. I have my favorite musicians. I like Luther Vandross. A friend of mine used to sing backup for him.
Okay.
Same with Whitney, Freddie Jackson, Shania Twain.
Okay, so you're like a nice pop and R&B
nice
and some reggae. Cool stuff.
So
I like all of these things, but you talked about your dream to see a Nobel Peace, not Peace Prize, but a Nobel laureate in science come out of one of your institutions. This is the legacy you want to leave.
Absolutely.
Right now, what gives you fulfillment?
So I want to see Sparks and Ice-Team as a focal point of the next trust in education. So where we are seated right now is Sparks, and I want to take this place from nursery all the way to high school. Wow. And so for those who are listening into this conversation, I think you should reach out to us. You should come and experience this. You should come and partner with us. And we would like to have your words. We would like to be part of your story, part of your word story. And for me, that's the ultimate fulfillment, to make sure that this place is really thriving and is delivering as we all hope.
Yeah. It's easy to celebrate success, progress, advancement. But like pregnancy, as they say, you don't know how many tries there were before the pregnancy showed up. You failed somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Just tell me about one of the most daunting ones and how you bounced back.
So I think the most challenging for me was I took a course in undergrad called Microprocessors 2. And I had a girlfriend, a Black American girl from Cleveland. That was a little troublesome. She was going off script. And so one hot afternoon, I go to my dorm from my lab, and she had opened my diary. Well, those days we wrote numbers. That's long before smart. And she had called every number in that book. And so I came in on her, and I'm like, Yvette, what's going on here? It's like, I'm trying to figure out who is who. I said, why do you have to figure out who is who? So she apologized. Everything was fine. Then a month later, I got my phone bill. Those days, you get a phone bill.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, it was like $3 per minute if you call Africa those days. And so I was so upset, I broke up with her. I was so devastated. I got a C out of that class. My first and only C in undergrad.
Wow.
4 Bs, 1 C. But the good thing is that anytime I take my transcript and I look at that C, I say, this is the only grade in my transcript that I respect the most. Because if I hadn't come back and worked as hard as I should have, that would have been an F. So for me, that was really the most challenging. Yes, your relationships can actually impact your goals, and the lessons is to choose carefully.
Wow.
And by the way, when we broke off, I told her, you will never find another guy like Fred. She's still single.
You shouldn't be happy about that. You shouldn't be happy about that. You know, but it's always there are lessons in life.
Yes,
and I think
it's challenging for for adolescents. It's relationship, trying to figure out new relationships and where it fits in the grand scheme of things can be challenging.
I guess it's just like chemical reactions, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's some elements you should never try.
Never try to explode in your face,
but then bring canvas. So it's great stuff. You talked about mentorship that you do.
Yes, absolutely.
What was your experience growing up? Did you receive any mentoring?
No, actually, I didn't get much. I grew up mostly with my mom's siblings, my grandparents, my older brother, myself, and my uncles. And I was just talking about them today, and I said, if we were accounts, we would have been the kids that our uncles will hold in the highest of esteem. Interesting enough, they were never interested. They will actually say things like, you're wasting your time going to school, that if you want degrees, we just walk across the road and buy them from the gun. Well, as fate will have it, people persevere, and I think I also work hard not to be like them.
Right.
So if that's mentorship, it was a different type of mentorship because I had examples of what I should not become. My grandfather, I think the most influential person in my life was my mother's father. He was a very quiet man who went through life the hard way. He always had 2 jobs for as long as I knew. He was a security guy at night and a sama by day. Never could speak Ghana properly. Spoke Dagari to all his kids. Didn't have any friends. And one thing that stayed with me, he would come home on Friday evening and he would leave Saturday evening. And I'll walk him from Bauleshi to Okongolo, where the traffic light is today. So one day as I was walking with him, he said, I should look into the skies. And I looked. I was about 10 years old. And he said, what do you see? I said, I see the blue skies. He said, what do you see? I see the silver skies. He said, what do you see? Keep looking. And I said, Grandpa, I can't see anything else. And he said, exactly. The things that you can't see are the things you should go after in life. And so, I say this to say that when I started trying to become an astronaut, I was actually doing that in fulfillment of that moment with my grandfather. That beyond the skies, there are things that you should still see.
So that's where you were striving. Fantastic story. But you didn't have a mentor per se, but you dedicated a lot of the time towards mentoring.
Yeah. Why?
Where did that come from?
Well, I answered earlier that for me, when I look at young adults that I deal with every single day, my principal driving force is how can I get these kids to be better than me? And so being better than me doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow the same path. Mm-hmm. My intent is to help them to leapfrog.
Okay.
So yesterday I had a whole mentoring session with a kid who finished Academic City last year, did his national service with MTN, and he was still struggling with a lot of things through life. Parents were never there. And I sat with him for about an hour. I have his message, his thank you note on my phone. And I basically told him that for you to succeed in life, you first have to forgive your parents.
Forgiveness is powerful.
Powerful, because you are still angry with them. But you are 23 years old. Very soon you'll be a parent too. And then you will know that there is no university that teaches anybody to be a parent. It's an on-the-job training. Yep. So you get it right sometimes, and you get it wrong. So that is one. Two, seek your passion. Find out what you are excited about and build your profession around that. You'll be more successful. Mm-hmm. The reason why we haven't produced Nobel laureates in science is because we educate over there and people's passion are here. Try to lump them together. If the kid says, I want to do statistics, don't tell them actuarial science is the closest they can come to statistics. Mm-hmm. Let them do statistics. So that was another guidance. And I said, you are only limited by your own enthusiasm for the things you want in life. You alone can change your story. Mm-hmm. You are the historian of your life.
Wow. Brilliant. This is always great catching up, and this is like the best conversation I've had in a while. As always, it's great talking to you. This is Sunday night, and I've been talking to Professor Fred Mcbongunlori. He is the founding president of Academic City, founder of iSteam, founder of Sparks, and an inventor, a man who has 22 patents to his name. And I'm taking away a number of important things from this conversation. That number one, you can actually write your destiny. Speak it, work towards it. Learn as you go, but never give up. And number two, make the right choices, because the people who come into your life can either help you further that dream towards your destiny or derail you. And then number three is give of yourself. The experiences you go through are not meant for just you. You're only useful to the world if the light that's within you shines so bright that it touches other people. And finally, I think the one thing that I'm also taking away from all of this is that restlessness is good. It leads to asking questions. It leads to action. And when you can ask questions and take actions, what you do find is a discovery that might just touch the world in a wonderful way. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, boss.
It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Well, go forward, make rain. We're back next week with more iconic conversations. This has been Sunday Night, and I am Nhyira-Addo, the Rainmaker.